see, I was so struck by that stat. 84% want a job, right? Or education. I just feel like part of the social contract used to be, if you work hard at school, university, in an apprenticeship, you get a job at the end of it.
What the blazes are you even talking about? This social contract never, ever truly existed. Not for everyone anyway. Do you know how many laws had to be enacted to even get this level of parity between not only the genders, but also the different ethnicities in this country? So who was this social contract truly for? Because I know my parents' generation, that wasn't there.
I'm as real as a real can get.
Buongiorno freaks and geeks, welcome back to the channel. So it would seem the inevitable has happened. Rocket levels of youth unemployment. It's a shame there hasn't been a book that could have foretold this happening. But putting that book to one side, I find it incredibly arrogant that the establishment in this country didn't think we would get these levels of youth unemployment when we've seen it in other European countries such as Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, France. Like, what exactly did they think was so special about us that we wouldn't face the same statistics here? I mean, for crying out loud, all we do over here is move money around on the stock exchange and have a sizable tourism industry. But other than that, we don't make anything apart from making Americans comfortable enough to use our army bases to refuel and rearm. So apparently Sky News spoke to an expert on the topic of youth unemployment. We're going to get into that video right now. But before we do, please don't forget to hit the buttons for like, subscribe, and tell me down below what needs to happen to reduce youth unemployment.
Now, very pleased to say that our next guest is the former Health Secretary, Alan Milburn, who's been looking into this big review from the government into what is going on with our young people. So he's a man, I should say, who has done an awful lot of work on social mobility in your time in politics as well. These statistics you found are simply unbelievable, can I just say. I find them quite shocking. 1 million young people not in education, work or training, 58% of them have never had a job.
Yes.
What is going on with this generation?
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
In case you were wondering who Alan Milburn is, it's already been mentioned. He was the former Health Secretary. What isn't mentioned is that he was the Health Secretary under Tony Blair. He is an ardent Blairite, and he stopped being the Health Secretary in 2003. I can't believe you're still putting that as a current description for him. You could be done under the Trade Description Act at this point. Anyway, safe to say, Tony Blair paved the way for the record levels of youth unemployment we are seeing right now. Putting to one side that Tony Blair is a bloodthirsty war criminal, the only thing that he did while in government that was even slightly to the left of Margaret Thatcher was introduce Sure Start children's centres. It's a shame he didn't create the rest of the economy in that same vein. And as for Alan Milburn, he introduced privatisation into the NHS, something that no Tory government dared do before that. Try getting that toothpaste back into the tube now. So with all of that context presented before you, let's see what Alan has to say.
Well, they are stuck in a perfect storm, and if not careful, they're going to be a lost generation. You know, if you go back 20 years, that number was 4 in 10. It's now risen to 6 in 10 of young people aged 16 to 24 who've never, ever been in work. So the problem used to be youth unemployment. If you go back down the ages, it's now not really youth unemployment. These young people, about 60% of them, are not looking for work. And if you're not looking for work and you're not in work by the time you're 24, honestly, by the time you're 34, 44, your life chances are really ruined.
And why is this?
There's a perfect storm, I think, that this generation is sort of suffering from. You know, the nature of the labour market has really changed. Entry-level jobs have gone. Think about the Saturday job.
Yeah, like in a cafe or whatever. You used to...
I was a newspaper boy,
Yeah.
delivery boy. I got sacked, by the way.
What did you get sacked for?
Because I was like every adolescent boy, I couldn't get out of bed, and I was supposed to be delivering the morning papers.
I'm so happy they are able to have this such jovial talk while over 1 million young people, 16 to 24-year-olds, are not in employment, education, or training. I mean, he's kind of alluded to it there. We've seen a massive shift in the structure of our economy, which, if you do the reading, is inevitable within a capitalist system. With the advances in machine learning and supposed AI, more and more things are going to be done by machines, which means you need less and less human input into a lot of jobs. Now, with robots doing more of the work and humans doing less of the work, capitalists have seen this as an opportunity to cut human costs and make more profit for themselves. Are capitalists going to do the age-old myth of trickle-down economics? No, because they're greedy bastards, which means you need a government that actually cares about the most vulnerable. You know, putting policies in action that actually redistributes all of the wealth that we have. I mean, how can you have over 1 million young people not in employment, education, or training when you are the 6th biggest economy on the face of the planet? Oh gosh, we will get there, but the people in power are just really, really slow.
So those jobs have gone, and now young people feel like, you know, that first rung on the career ladder, it's more out of reach for them, and they're left in this absurd catch-22 situation where employers are asking for work experience, but of course they haven't had the opportunities to get work experience. So, and this is where they get really frustrated. The really great thing, the good news, look, there's a lot of reasons for pessimism, but the reason for optimism is when we surveyed these young people who are NEET, it's a horrible term, but not in education, employment and training, 84% of them want to be in work and want to be trained.
Yeah, of course. Like, people want a purpose. People don't just want to wake up, lay in bed all day and then go to sleep at night. That is the human condition. Why would you be surprised that, hey, most of these young people actually want to get out and feel useful? But putting that to one side, you haven't answered this question. What should happen to those employers that are demanding experience before they even take a chance on a young person?
You see, I was so struck by that stat. 84% want a job, right? Or education. I just feel like part of the social contract used to be, if you work hard at school, university, in an apprenticeship, you get a job at the end of it.
What the blazers are you even talking about? This social contract never ever truly existed. Not for everyone anyway. Do you know how many laws had to be enacted to even get this level of parity between not only the genders but also the different ethnicities in this country? So who was this social contract truly for? Because I know my parents' generation, that wasn't there. In fact, education taught them that no matter how hard you worked, you were going to get the least paying jobs ever. So this whole social contract malarkey is hogwash.
And it feels like that social contract has basically broken down.
Yes, I think that is absolutely true. And honestly, as I've been around the country talking to people, whether it's parents, grandparents, employers, schools, etc., businesses everywhere, this is the most visceral issue that I've known in 40 years in politics or public policy. I was going to say there's a concern. It's actually a fear, I think, in society now, amongst parents and grandparents, about the future of their kids, about their ability to get a job, a home, a decent career, a good future.
Yeah, we saw all of this collapse inwards with the ascension of Margaret Thatcher in the United Kingdom and Ronald Reagan in the United States of America. And the fact that this person, Alan Milburn, the ardent Blairite, actually featured in the government after John Major and didn't roll back all of the things that Margaret Thatcher tore down should disqualify him from even commenting on this right now. Why do you think people cannot buy a house? Is it because Margaret Thatcher gave people the right to purchase their council houses and never put in any effort to rebuild the stock that was lost? And that goes for every single government since. Why do you think people cannot get jobs? Is it because unions have never been more powerless than this moment right now? Collective bargaining has all but disappeared, and even if TfL workers rightfully go on strike, they are demonized to scare people from joining unions themselves. Again, all of this was exasperated under a Tony Blair government, who Alan Milburn was a key feature in.
And that's about AI, mental health, the after effects of the pandemic, all of this lack of opportunity in society. The social contract is built on a very, very simple basis, which is you put in effort, you get a reward. Each generation should do better than the previous generation. That's a contract that's been broken.
That is such capitalist propaganda to get people continuing to just stay in line. What are you even talking about right now? What do you mean what does a social contract even mean? I was under belief that a government should ensure that their citizens are able to meet their full potential. No government since Margaret Thatcher has tried to do that. The citizens are not in the wrong. It's the establishment right now. Unless, of course, you're in the royal family, because obviously their children are allowed to thrive. At the expense of the taxpayer, mind you.
Our job of this generation, we've got to fix it. We really do.
It feels almost like a kind of tinderbox with that social contract breaking down. I mean, are you worried about, in future generations, if we don't sort this out, social unrest?
It's not so much social unrest. What I'm really worried about is that people think that, that contract you talked about. Yeah. I was brought up by a single mum, and what she always taught me was, and from a pretty poor background and all that, I grew up on a council estate, but she always said to me, if you put in effort, you got a reward.
Yeah. Oh, you liar.
Where does your mum even learn that? I mean, what? What part of history, unless you're in the upper echelons of society, does that even apply to? I mean, like for over 100 years, or actually since records began, you can find the areas where the highest health inequalities are where they have the highest levels of poverty. And they haven't changed even by any amount of distance in the last 100 years. So what on earth was your mother drinking? I have to ask.
And I guess in my life, I've been very, very lucky, but it's all been really about work and purpose and meaning. That's given me meaning in life. And this is a generation that, if we're not careful, are going to be written off. This is going to be the bedroom generation, stuck in their bedrooms with higher levels of anxiety than we've seen before. And you talk to young people, and it's like, they're so frustrated about this. You talk to young people, and they're doing dozens, sometimes hundreds of applications for jobs. They hear nothing back. And it's the silence that kills them. It dents confidence, but it also kills hope.
Okay, you're just describing the problem. So what do you think should happen? Are you advocating for bigger government programs so they can just start employing more of these young people? Like, you need solutions, and I don't hear anything right now. You're just describing the problem. Can we have some solutions? Also, you're describing a problem that you had a massive hand in ensuring came to fruition, by the way.
How much of this is down to AI, do you think?
Not yet, I think.
There's
a real risk around AI. AI will create jobs as well, but it, of course, will unsettle the labour market and change it, and that will be a big fear that people have.
Yeah, I don't know about this whole suggestion that AI will create jobs. I would have thought AI just creates jobs for the people who do the coding for social media platforms anyway, so their jobs would just get moved to the side. Because I thought AI was coding, unless I'm completely wrong. But also what they're not mentioning is that with the advance of technology, capitalists are employ more machines so they can get rid of more human workers so they can make more profit. Like, you're not even suggesting a larger tax on profits on companies. You're just saying, oh, well, you know, AI will create jobs. What are we ever going to do? Like, we just gotta hope more that companies will go out of their way and, you know, just create jobs out of thin air when they don't need to.
Can I ask how much of it do you think is due to government policy? Because some businesses are saying, actually, part of the issue is it's more expensive to hire people now.
Yes.
At those low-paid jobs.
Yes, I think that has had an impact, undoubtedly, that is the case. And, you know, the government's got to be very careful, because if you want to maximise jobs for young people, you've got to minimise the risk for the employer.
And
What are you talking about? They're not employing young people because, guess what? Unions have no power to ensure that the lowest salary in a company isn't uplifted, which means that, for better or worse, people who come from countries where their cost of living is a lot lower than ours will take those jobs. But even that suggestion's really stupid on my part, because I saw a video of a guy complaining that his nephew can't get a Uber Eats job, but Uber Eats is not a barrier. They're not putting up any barriers. They want as many people delivering as possible because it makes them look better. So yeah, me even suggesting that foreign born workers are taking the low paid jobs, that I shouldn't have even said that. What needs to happen is you just need more collective bargaining and less CEOs, job creators, from being able to do what the hell they want and tell you whatever the hell they want.
what specifically? Do you think minimum wage rise? Do you talk about national insurance contributions, or both?
So I think it's all of these things together, you know. So but every time an employer takes on a young person, it's always a risk because they're unproven. So the job of government is to minimise the risk, maximise the incentives. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. You know, the changes that I've described in the labour market, they haven't just happened in the last few years. They've been going on for, in some cases, decades. Apprenticeships is a good example. The number of apprenticeship starts amongst young people has fallen by a third in just 10 years. So there's issues not just in the welfare system, but in the education system, the health system. And what we say, our core conclusion is the systems that are supposed to be helping young people from education into employment are no longer fit for purpose. They're not working. And in some cases, they're making the problem worse, not better.
The system's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Again, I have to reiterate this. With the advent of technology, you are going to hire less humans, which means that the people with more experience are going to go for the entry-level jobs, which inevitably pushes out young people who have zero experience. And when you actually think about it, with the rising cost of living, those people with more experience inevitably have more to lose. So they're going to be damned if they let some young whippersnapper fresh out of university take a job from them, if that meant whether they paid their mortgage that month or not. One thing I will agree with Alan on is that, yes, the systems are all linked. And the common thread for all of them is that this is what happens under a capitalist framework. This is always what is supposed to be happening. All of the wealth trickles upwards and gets concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. And those fewer and fewer hands are not going to start making jobs out of the kindness of their hearts. They have to be forced by governments who have the ambition and appetite to see just people thrive, for crying out loud. Golly.
I was really struck by what you talked about when it comes to phones and social media.
Right.
Saying that, look, there's been this big increase in young people claiming sickness benefits, particularly for mental health issues like anxiety. They're not snowflakes. This is a real issue, but it's driven by the fact that I'm on phones all the time. So what's your feeling on a ban for social media from?
Well, the government's looking at that, and I don't know where they're going to go, but we will pronounce on that in the autumn. So we're gathering the evidence at the moment.
Go on, tell us what you must have a bit of a.
The evidence points in one direction. Look, we've had a small team of people going around the country talking to neat young people. These young people are not in education and employment training, and they do this exercise where they start a conversation saying, "Okay, what time did you go to sleep last night? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Sometimes never." So this is a generation...
Because they're on the phone.
We're on the phone.
Yeah, but again, with the whole social media ban, it's not going to be affecting these people because it's for under 16-year-olds, not 16 to 24-year-olds. So even you mentioning it is a bit silly, but definitely on the subject of phones, again, capitalism, anyone. The reason they are on their phones is because big tech companies have curated algorithms to make sure they stay on their phones. The longer they stay on the phones, the more ad revenue that tech company gets to claim. It's not chemistry. It's 2 + 2 = 4. So what you need to be saying is that we need to really clamp down on these big tech companies. But you wouldn't say that because you're Blairite and you believe in private enterprise, despite all of its clear and obvious faults. And I swear to God, if all these social media companies were publicly owned by the government, for example, oh my goodness, the outcry against them would be deafening.
And the evidence that I've seen, there's a brilliant guy called Professor Peter Fonagy, and I've really relied on Peter's research because, he knows far more about it than I do. And what he says is distress is real amongst young people, and it is leading to functional impairment. So this is lack of sleep, low concentration levels, and so on and so forth. This is a real thing. It's not a fake thing. They're not making it up. Yeah. This is a more anxious generation.
And look, I know you don't want to say before you pronounce it, but it feels like you're saying the evidence is pointing on one way when it comes to social media.
The evidence is pointing in one direction. I really genuinely think it is. I think this idea that you can have a generation, particularly of young kids, who are sat in their bedrooms, late at night, sometimes early in the morning, doom scrolling continuously, and that not to have an impact on them, I think that defies logic.
Do you think Keir Starmer gets it?
Yes, I do. Yeah, no, very much so. And I think, Pat McFadden, who's the Welfare Secretary and has really been championing this work, he commissioned my review. He's up for a really big change. Yeah,
Blairites sticking together as usual. I would love to see what recommendations they have. It's going to be some of the most airy-fairy, no substance recommendations, and they will just focus on what is happening as opposed to what could be. I mean, all of these people lack imagination. All they know what to do is privatize more and more aspects of public life and fill the pockets of their mates and sit on boards for these mates as well.
You obviously work very closely with Tony Blair. You were his health secretary. You were kind of seen in a way as kind of Mr. Blairite in a way. I know that was kind of Tony Blair, but you were number 2, if you like. I was very intrigued to see what your view was on his intervention yesterday.
Well, Tony's certainly still capable of making an argument and causing one, isn't he?
Oh my God, kill me now. Why are these people laughing? Tony Blair is an actual war criminal. He should be in The Hague. The fact that he still is able to go out in public and come away is a miracle to us all.
I think what he says about, modern politics, which is for it to work and for the public to believe it, you've got to have an agenda and you've got to have a plan. I think there was one thing missing from what he said. You've also got to have a cause. There aren't many causes left in modern British politics. This is a cause, the cause of the next generation. We had all the opportunities in the world in my generation. We really did. We were very, very lucky. It's shameful that we're not providing those opportunities for this generation, and the consequences will be calamitous, in my view, if we don't.
I know as journalists we're not supposed to talk about the elephant in the room, which is this kind of shadow leadership contest, but I guess is this your kind of rallying cry to Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, everyone, to say this should be your cause?
It doesn't matter who it is. And frankly, we're talking to politicians across the piece. I was talking to Helen Wakely before, who's the Shadow Work Secretary, as we came into the studio.
Yeah, I guess you have a lot in common because you're both a bunch of conservatives, so that doesn't shock me at all.
We're talking to all the political parties. You know, this should be an issue that genuinely is an issue for the nation, that actually brings the nation together. And when I talk to employers, young people, schools, local politicians, local charities, people are as concerned as we are about this.
Yeah.
And they want to, more importantly, they want to do something about it.
I should have wrapped up about 5 minutes ago, but I find this issue so interesting. I am going to squeeze a very cheeky one at the end. Keir Starmer. Should the Labour Party give him more time, or is it time to actually look at someone else?
And I'm really going to duck that and say that's outside my terms of reference.
Oh, come on.
Do you see I went into politician mode there?
You've taken your politician hat off for the whole of the interview. Come on, what do you reckon?
I think the question really isn't a question of leadership. The question is a question of cause. You know, that's what
Has Keir Starmer got a cause? Because you need a leader as well, don't you?
It's
you need a
interesting.
leader to sell the cause.
So Keir's writing about it in one of the newspapers in the Times this morning. You know, I know that this is an issue that he's really bothered about.
Okay.
And the question is, not are you bothered, are you going to do something about it?
Okay, great to have you on the programme. Thank you
so
very much for being with us.
So Keir Starmer doesn't have a cause, he doesn't have a purpose, he doesn't have a passion. Nothing gets him up in the morning to make him go outside and say, I'm going to do my job really, really well, because he's a puppet of the others around him. And we are seeing that more and more every single day. I need to go and check when that Makerfield by-election is, because the sooner we get the result of that, the sooner Keir Starmer can disappear from our lives for good. And maybe the next person will actually start implementing things with such a massive majority, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So what do you think? Tell me down below. For me, it's very obvious why young people are facing unemployment at these levels in this country. I mean, the UK is not immune from what is happening to other countries, not only in Europe, but across the world. Young people are getting pushed out as we are seeing late stage capitalism actually come to an end. And I've always known that unemployment and also homelessness is a tool used in capitalist countries to tell people, look, this is what will happen to you if you don't fall in line. If you're looking for the money that should be spent on our young people, look to the billionaires that are sending rockets up into the solar system for no reason other than hubris and ego. So if you've made it to this point, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. If you enjoy audiobooks, I voice one on spotting red flags in relationships. Link in the description below. Remember, once we understand politics, we will make better choices. Please don't forget to hit the buttons for like, subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Ciao.